who I'm not sure exactly where he wants to go to school, but they'll be leading us in the in Pledge of Allegiance. So, Vaughn, please stand.
Father God, we're blessed to be in your presence this evening, Lord. And Father, we ask that your presence be upon these men and women tonight during this meeting. Father, I ask you to give them a measure of wisdom and discernment that only you can bless them with. Father, give them peace in their decisions. And Father, we just thank you for their willingness to serve in this capacity. Father, we thank you so much for this season of the year that reminds us of your Son, Jesus. Father, we thank you for his birth and his death and his resurrection. Father, I'd ask that you be with men and women who are guarding the freedoms of this great nation tonight, wherever they're serving, home or abroad, and their families as they sacrifice while they're away. Thank you, Jesus, for being willing to go to the cross for us. We didn't deserve it, but we thank you so much for the sacrifice. It's in your holy name I pray. Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Photo op.
We tried.
Thank you. Oh, the beacon's going to take a picture. Thank you, guys. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to deviate from normal order of business tonight. We've got two high school students that we're going to recognize. Let me explain to you what this is all about. Last year, a constituent of mine, Charles Thompson, came to me with an idea about redesigning the city flag. And I had to mull over it a little bit, but I thought, well, okay, that's a good idea. So in conjunction with the 75th anniversary of the city of Midwest City, I reached out to the high school art students of Carl Albert and Midwest City High School and gave them some guidelines on symbolism and flags and things of that nature. And I asked, give it your best shot and see what you can come up with. We had several excellent entries, and but the two things that we were looking at was the use of symbolism and how well they could explain it. And we have the two front runners here with us tonight. And we want to honor them in recognizing their work, and then the council will vote on whether to adopt or defer until further time. So with that being said, these two are the two front runners over here on the left-hand side. And the first place winner, Matt Moeller. Can you come down and with your family and coach? First place is Carl Albert High School. Matt's entry has several symbols, and all recognizing or has something to do with the city of Midwest City and its history. And he did a very detailed description of what each symbol, that's the one on the bottom over there, meant, and it all had something to do with the city of Midwest City from its founding to its current state. So, Matt, on behalf of the Midwest City Council and the staff here, I want to thank you for your time and effort, and Coach, your guidance in this, and congratulations, and you are the first place winner. And here's the certificate and one of our 75th anniversary coins. Thank you. Coach Case is the cross-country coach, Carl Albert, and he's informed me that they have a cross-country banquet to go to from here, and Matt is also a cross-country runner, correct?
Yes, all-stater.
All-stater, so there you go. Thanks again for being here, Matt. Coach, thank you. Thank you, guys. Good luck. In first place from Midwest City, Patience Barnett. Again, this flag utilized symbolism and colors to signify the history of Midwest City. And Patience put a lot of thought and effort into this, and we appreciate that. And did you learn anything about the history of Midwest City that you didn't know?
I did.
Right. Well, that was the whole point of this exercise. So on behalf of the Midwest City Council and the staff of Midwest City, I want to thank you for your effort and time putting into this. And congratulations. Again, certificate of appreciation and one of our 75th anniversary coins.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for being here. You guys have a great night.
Thank you.
Oh, sure. With that being said, the chair would entertain a motion on this discussion item.
Mr. Mayor, and this is, it's a little difficult to say, but, and I completely understand the thought process that you went through to do this. You reached out to the schools to get them involved. But on the other side of that coin, we recently went to the citizens and asked them and basically told them that we were teetering on not having enough money to finish this fiscal year. And we went to them and we asked them to increase the sales tax, and that the voters trusted us. And during that sales tax election, there was a lot of discussion about us not being good stewards of the money, and we're spending money on things that aren't necessary. And I'm not diminishing the fact that a flag may be a good idea to do. However, I think at this time, this is an unbudgeted item. There isn't anything in our budget to pay the change. We don't know what the change will cost the city. Actually, in my opinion, it would be, I would like for this to be tabled at least until the next fiscal year to see if, number one, to figure out how much it's going to cost to change this, and if we can put money in the budget to do it, because I really don't think that we should be taking money from something else. Because getting a new flag, there's nothing wrong with ours. Would a new one be nice? Yes. But to change it, it's kind of a fluff deal in my book, where it's a nice thing to have, but it's not necessary for the operation of the city. And I would hate that we spend some money on something that isn't really necessary to do right now. And I'm not saying that we don't need a new flag, but I think right now, I mean, we just asked the citizens for an increase in our sales tax. They trusted us, and we're going to have to find money to do this, and we don't know where the money's going to come from because we don't even know how much it's going to cost.
With that being said, also it'd be the council's responsibility to pick one of these excellent flags or adopting one of these submissions as our new flag. With that being said, the chair entertain a motion to.
Hey, how far long out can we table something, Mr. City Attorney? So, which I think this is the theme for the night. If we took no action on it, we could bring it up later without any problem. If we
We can
table
do
it, it has
that
to come up exactly
as
like
well.
it is. Now, it's a stupid question. We have 1 and 2. Can we make some kind of a motion recognizing these kids who did this and who put their hearts and souls into it without addressing number 2, which is considering the
Actually, I
flag
think
change?
we just did that, and recognizing their efforts and
Okay.
recognizing their participation. And then on the second half of this discussion item, we can take no action and move it forward until such time that you guys can decide which one you want to adopt and whether or not we have the funds to move forward.
Well, I personally want to say thank you to the students, to the teachers, one who I know personally, April. Thank you for continuing to teach and changing students' lives all this many years later.
And by no means am I diminishing what the kids did, because I can't color with inside the lines, let alone draw something freehand. So I just think that I think we would be opening ourselves up for some criticism if we spent money on something that really wasn't necessary right now, especially when we don't have the funds identified.
Okay. So the chair would entertain a motion to take no action.
Move to take no action, Mayor.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, now we'll be moving back to the regular order of business, and I get to recognize some more young people.
I like the one.
Thank you. Great job.
As part of our 75th anniversary, also reached out to all the elementary schools in the Middale area, targeting the 5th grade and asking them, and I gave all the teachers information, and here's the history of Midwest City. Write a one-page report, if you will. I was told not to use the word essay by several 5th grade teachers. I don't understand that, but a one-page report depicting or asking them what you want your city to look like. Now, I got 3 schools responded back: Telstar, Soldier Creek, and Swartz. And I got 3 great young people from those schools. Could I ask Terrell Orange from Telstar? Okay. Blake McFadden from Soldier Creek. And Jordan Ateg from Swartz. Again, their essays or reports are up here, and again, they took the history of Midwest City and wrote about it and described what they want their city to look like. Again, the intent was to get the young people involved. It is our 75th anniversary, and to let them learn a little bit of our history, which we have a very proud and prestigious history in the state. So with that being said, I'm going to read a quote from Blake's report. I keep on wanting to say essay. I love Midwest City and think it's the best city ever. And Blake? Dude, I agree. So with that being said, and can I keep your essay for a while? Okay. We're gonna put it online. Is that okay with you? All right, buddy. Here's a certificate of appreciation and also one of our 75th anniversary coins. Again, thank you very much. And again, Jordan, man, I like this. The quote from your report is, Midwest City is a great place to be. And I agree with you. And are you going to run for mayor? Huh? No, I don't want that job. I don't blame you. But with that being said, thank you for your participation. Here's a certificate honoring that and one of our 75th anniversary coins. Thank you very much. Thank you, guys. Let's do a picture. Thank you guys for being here tonight. And when Terrell gets here, could you kind of wave at us? We'll stop whatever we're doing and we will honor him. Huh? Oh, well, come on down.
He's not here right now.
Okay. Well, there's no better than a teacher to be down here honoring this young man. And a quote, and thank you for, I know you guys have got a busy schedule, and you don't need some mayor coming out and handing you more work to do, but I do appreciate the participation in the learning process, and I hope they learned something.
Thank you.
A quote from Terrell's report is, I'm sure that Midwest City's future will be as exciting as the first 75 years. That's pretty neat from a fifth grader. So thank you, ma'am, for being here, and thank you for participating. And if you could give this to Terrell and hand it back. Thank you, ma'am. Okay. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, council, we'll go ahead and return to the regular order of business and move into our consent agenda. Nope, I'm sorry. Do we have any community-related announcements from the Horseshoe?
I'd like to give the council a report on our sales tax revenue for the month of December. We received that report late last week. We saw an increase of approximately $80,000 over the same period last year. Use tax was really pretty unchanged. For the year through December, we're about 0.5% ahead of projection, or about $81,000. So always good to be on the positive side of things. As always, I just encourage everyone to shop local. Come and spend your dollars locally. You know, about 75% of our operating revenue for our general fund departments and our police and fire comes from sales tax revenue. So that's why we encourage people to try to shop local. So thank you. And Paul, could you come up real quick and give us a sanitation route schedule for the holidays?
As you know, this year Christmas is on Monday, the 25th. So we will not be picking up trash or recycling on that Monday. We'll be picking it up on the following Wednesday, the 27th. It will run as normal. So those that are going to normally pick up on Monday, plan to put your stuff out Tuesday night for Wednesday pickup. And the same thing for the 1st of January. We're going to observe that holiday on the 1st, which means that your trash and recycling that would normally be picked up on the 1st will be picked up on the 3rd, that Wednesday. Additionally, the compost facility and the transfer station will be closed both of those weekends to observe Christmas and New Year's holiday.
Okay. Thank you, Paul.
Okay.
I think we may have.
I believe Terrell's here. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Terrell. And Telstar. And again, thank you for coming today. The quote from his report is, "I'm sure that Midwest City's future will be as exciting as the first 75 years." I want to thank you for participating. Did you learn anything about the Midwest City? Okay, great. So are you going to run for public office? Maybe mayor? No, I don't know. Smart guy. This is your certificate, and this is just a small token of our appreciation. That's our 75th anniversary coin. And I've already thanked your teacher, but I want to thank you for participating. You did a great job. Okay? Yeah. If we miss a chance of getting our young people involved in their community, we'll miss a huge opportunity. So that was the intent of the council and myself, as getting these kids involved and learning a little bit about our history and getting them some recognition. So again, I want to thank the council's indulgence and also the participants. And we may do something again next year. And Jill says, "Oh no, we're not." We'll go ahead and move into the consent agenda.
I just have one quick announcement. I would like to invite everyone out to the MLK Prayer Breakfast, which is the Martin Luther King Prayer Breakfast here in Midwest City. Midwest City has been hosting this for decades, and it is January the 15th, 2018 at 7 a.m. and to 9 a.m. And it is $15, and you can buy your tickets at the Midwest City Community Center. And it's a great breakfast. The food is great, and it's have a great agenda for its music and a lot of history. So, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Allen. Any further announcements from the horseshoe? I'm sorry. Hearing none, we'll move into our consent agenda for the third time. These items are placed on the consent agenda so that the council members, by unanimous consent, can approve routine agenda items by one motion. If any item proposed does not meet with the approval of all council members or members of the audience wish to discuss an item, it will be removed and heard in its regular order.
Move to approve the consent agenda.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? We'll move into discussion item number 2.
This is discussion consideration of a presentation by Brett Hawkinson, the Association of Central Oklahoma Government Division Director, regarding an update on the 911 program overview and fund balance.
Due to the discussion over these over the ACOG and our current situation with ACOG, the chair would entertain a motion to table number 2 and 3 until the first meeting in February. Yes. Yeah. First meeting in February. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead and.
I'll go ahead and read through.
I apologize. The next question, are we better off take no action so it can come back different? Because if we table it, it has to come back exactly like it's read.
Take no action is what I meant. I'm sorry.
So we don't even need to take a vote on that. You can call for a motion. If nobody makes one, then it's no action.
Okay. So we're taking no action on this?
On number 2. I'll proceed to number 3, discussion consideration of approving a resolution establishing 100% of all fees and taxes for 911 emergency telephone service to be collected by ACOG for the period July 1, 2017 through June 30th, 2018. Again, no actions necessary. We can bring this back.
No actions will be taken on these two items. Move into number 4.
Number 4 is discussion consideration of a request to fund the construction of a water line extension from Westminster Road to Southeast 28th Street along Rofan Road and Hand Road in the amount of $322,154.75. This item was continued from the November 14th, 2017 meeting.
And the chair understands that the council wants to take no action on this item as well.
That's correct.
I think so. This is public discussion though, correct?
No,
This is not public discussion?
it would say public hearing if there was.
The only reason I was asking is I know that there are several members that I wanted to explain why, because there are several folks that are in Rofan that I wanted to explain why we wanted to take no action. Taking no action.
Let me call them up to the
Okay,
podium.
all right.
Could Teresa Scott and Aaron come up to the podium, please? And Mr. Goldbranson, are you here on the same issue or a different one?
No, I have no comment if it's not regarding Winslow Drive.
Okay.
Okay. I'm just wanted to be able to speak and to find out what was determined so that I could speak what I saw on the agenda at the end. I wasn't quite sure what that was, the supporting documentation meant, because they did a study evidently about the line hookups and.
You want to take a lead on this?
Yeah,
Mr. Reed?
actually, on that little part, I'm going to defer to Patrick and to Billy, because the letter that's in here is from Patrick Menifee. He's got some fancy initials, which means he's kind of smart after his name. Can you answer her questions for what that letter is entailing?
Yes, of course, ma'am. I'm not real sure, though, which letter you're referencing right now.
The one that was at the end of the agenda in the supporting documentation, that went with the agenda item. It was the very end. It talked about the extension costs of going for the connections from the homes to the.
Oh, I understand now. There was a number put into the item in case the council wanted to consider an average of what residents on the street, if the cost of the extension was divided throughout the residents that are there and then any future development. It was an average of an acre per homestead that could connect to the city water. If the cost of this line extension was divided between all of those different parcels, that's what that cost assessment was entailing, to reimburse the city for that line.
So we have a couple of options. We can table it, which means it has to come back to us exactly as it sets at a later date, usually the next meeting. We can vote affirmative on it, we can vote no on it, or we can take no action on it. The reason I'm suggesting that we take no action on it tonight is, one, things can be changed with staff and with everybody else when they get more of the information that they need to make sure how much it costs. One thing they want to look at is property A's an acre. If we've run water and they've tied off onto it, but they then split the lot to put another house on it, they should also have to pay another connection fee.
I got some things to say about that.
Okay.
Yeah.
But we're wanting to take no action so the staff can do another survey of the 45 homeowners there to see how many actually would like to tie on now. Because we did it in 2012, and there were only 5 of the 45 that actually wanted to tie on. So it gives us a chance to really firm up those numbers with all of the residents and to make sure that the numbers that they have are correct. By taking no action, it can come back to us in a changed, something changed form compared to what it sets now. So that's why I don't want to table it, because it gives staff some room to work out all the numbers.
Well,
In
I
other
don't know
words,
how
if
we
you
got
table
to-
it, ma'am, it'll have to come back exactly where it is, so. that's
And
why
the
we
other
say
thing
no
is,
action.
one of the things, even if we voted yes tonight, the $322,154.75 this is estimated to cost, we don't have the money in this year's budget. It would have to be rolled to next year's. So if we take no action, give staff time to get everything done, get the surveys out, figure out where we are, so we can then actually do this in the proper budget year anyway.
And plus too, ma'am, it'll allow us to get into looking at our next year's budget and rolling a cost in if in fact this is the way we're going to go. So it just buys us some time to make sure that we've got all the numbers correct and that we've got the participation that the council wants to see when we make this expenditure to run the water up there.
Okay. My concern is I just don't know how we got into this wanting to charge us more money because we live on Rofan Road to hook into, to tie into water that we need because our water has been, you know, we have a contamination issue about a quarter mile from our house. I don't know how we're getting into trying to charge us to hook up when it probably should be the other way around. But to me, you know, what I read in the letter is you got an engineer trying to determine property values that should be done by the county assessor, and we pay our taxes accordingly to what the county assessor assesses us at. You can't say that the lots, you're going to have more lots. You can't do that unless you have more sewer. Sewer there too. We're not talking about sewer. We're talking about water. So anyway, but also to charge more for water connections in our communities, discrimination against the poor people. The poor and the people on fixed incomes shouldn't have the rights to health and safety withheld because the city wants to speculate on their property value. I don't even know how we got into that, and it's even being mentioned.
Where's the property value?
Approximately 80% of our neighborhood will not be able to afford this, and you don't do this to anybody else. Do you assess value of homes and businesses when you require a fee for city services?
Ma'am,
You don't
hang on a
Yeah,
second.
assess-
Hang on a
when I
second.
had my house built 8 years ago, we had to pay. You had
How
to
much
pay to
did you
tie
have to
in.
pay? Did you pay $7,000?
We paid whatever the tie-in rate is.
Well, I bet it wasn't $7,000.
Well, but if you have a
But-
lot more homes there and you're running a water line
Uh-huh.
because you have a lot more residents, it's going to be less to compensate for all that stuff that's being run. I must have missed something where somebody's tying something to property values. There's nothing in here tied into property
Well, it
values.
was in the letter.
I think is what, maybe I can provide some clarification on that. What I asked staff to do was look at how many, if there was a water line placed out there, there would be people that would be able to tie on to the water that were not able to tie on before. The lot would be able to be developed because there is water and services out there. So if there is additional lots created because the city went out and put water, then there's a development cost for that. That properties is able to be developed that wasn't able to be developed before. And so that the cost of that should be passed on to pay for the water line because lots were being created that weren't being able to be created before.
Not to the property owners, only the
Well,
future
ma'am, I
property.
can tell
To
you,
the
my
new
area where I
property.
live, the developer that put my area in put all the water lines in. The developer normally does that.
Uh-huh.
The city didn't, the city of Midwest City didn't come to my addition and put water lines in.
Well, did the
The
city allow
developer
your
did.
water to be polluted?
Well, now,
and-
time out,
No.
ma'am,
No.
ma'am, hang on a second. I know exactly
and
where
do
she
you
lives
live a
because
quarter
she
of a
used to
mile
live
away
behind
from-
me. The city, in no way, shape, or form, allowed the water to be polluted.
Th-
That is not a true statement in any way, shape, or form.
If the city knew about this for years,
This is a DEQ issue, Department of Environmental Quality.
the city fined them.
We didn't find the DEQ.
It's what it says in the newspaper.
We
Ma'am,
didn't intentionally allow this to be done. If we were to give water to you, run water out there at our cost, talk about a disparity in treatment, anybody else that wants to tie off into water or have it run, they have to pay for it. I have a resident, he is a landlord. He's here in Ward 4. He is on well. City water does run right next to him. He wanted to have water run. It was going to cost him like $10,000 because of how long it had to go. He wanted the city to pay for it. We don't pay for that.
And ma'am, as we originally
Who
discussed,
paid for 28th Street water? Why did you run it down there?
ma'am, as we.
I don't know, and we gave you the opportunity to tie off on it, and none of y'all
You know,
wanted to.
Yeah,
M-
because
Ms. Scott, as we originally discussed, if you recall when we first talked, I indicated to you that Even if we ran the water line down both of these streets, it's going to cost each individual homeowner or property owner to tie into that line. We are only responsible for that line where it comes up to the property. Everything on the other side of the property, the homeowner's responsible for.
Well, I'm aware.
And you would have to pay that money to tie in. We want to make sure that the cost that we're going to charge is equitable and what we are actually going to be out. This hasn't been a mystery throughout our discussions, and we're not trying to do anything outlandish or outside the law. And as Mr. Reed stated, the city is not responsible for the actions that were taking place on private property at Eagle Industries. We had no reason, unless we had a reason to be there on a fire or a code enforcement issue or some other issue, we had no reason to even expect that they were doing what they were doing. It was only long after they closed down that we even found out about it. So the culpability on the city is not there. Now, what we're trying to do with you is rectify this by doing the study, getting you water out there, and also we've only had one positive result for that chemical out there, and then the next time we tested it, it wasn't there at all, and that resident is continuing to be tested by DEQ at DEQ's expense. So we're trying to work with you, but we want to make sure that we have our ducks in a row when we come down that street with that water line. That's all there is. And I told you from our initial conversation that this would end up costing each individual homeowner. And so, I mean, that's just the way things are. And we do not have the money to hook you up. And obviously, if we did hook you up, we're going to be assuming the liability of that line if in case it breaks or anything, and we cannot do that on private property.
Ms. Scott, can I, just so that we get this clear, the memo that Patrick put together identified what the cost would be to you as a current homeowner if you were to tie on to the city water. I don't know whether it would be a short service or a long service. It would depend upon where what side of the street the water line was installed, okay? And that table there that has the meter cost, the tie-on fee, the plumbing permit fee, those would be the expenses that you would incur if you, at your current house, were to tie on to the public water. So if you had a short service and you put a 5/8 inch meter, the meter cost would be $606, the tie-on $75, the plumbing permit would be $39.50, and then whatever it cost for the private plumber to take it from the meter to your home. The reference to the $7,000 figure is in the event that there was subsequent new development on property that has access to this public water, there would be an assessment fee placed upon those new lots that were created as a result of having the availability of the public water. But to you as a existing property owner, the cost would be what you see in that table.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay,
It's
that was
not
misleading. It was-
$7,000 plus this other stuff. It's that cost that's in the table. And then if something else were to develop I don't know how big your property is. Let's say it's 330 by 660. That's 5 acres. So we got a lot of 5-acre tracts out there. But let's just say we did. And the water line came in front of your property. You could take that piece of property and you could divide that piece of property into 3 lots. 100 foot, 100 foot, 100 foot. And with the depth of the property and the lots, you could then have 3 lots, and let's say your house was on one side and on one side of the property, and you create these other 2 lots. So when you did that, then when someone wanted to tie on when you sold that second lot and that third lot to somebody, they would have to pay the $7,000 for the assessment fee because they're, you and they are benefiting from having the public water there, okay? So that's what the $7,000 applies to.
Yeah.
And I'd also like to bring up the fact too, aside from everything else, you also mentioned that the fire department wanted the water out there. There is a fire safety issue and, that was brought up. And so that's
Yes,
another
ma'am.
reason we really do need it, and it's especially this time of year. It's really
We understand that, and we included that in the report, the initial report, because there are probably 2 or 3 areas in the community that we're learning are gonna fall into that situation.
Okay.
And just to close out, one of the last things I told you was that government moves, but it moves slow. And it's just the nature of the beast, and we just need to make sure that we've got everything together before we move ahead with this project. But we are moving, okay?
Okay, all right. Sounds good.
Have a good Christmas, man.
Okay, you too, thank you.
I actually had a question about, you said you were going to send out another survey to look for interest.
What our intention is, that's why the no action thing allows them to determine the best course of action.
We did submit a petition showing nearly everybody on the street was interested in this, and I'd be concerned if there was a new petition sent out with some kind of language about, we're not going to do this unless you all chip in X amount of dollars, or if there's some price tag associated with that survey. Because I think the citizens on that street should express their opinion and show interest, and the cost be dealt with separately, because the threat of, hey, they're gonna charge me a bunch of money, again, things can be misleading, and I think that would skew the results of that survey unfairly to citizens that are.
We need to know as a city, if we're gonna run that water line out there, there are gonna be enough homes that are gonna tie off onto it. Because if we spend $322,000 and 5 homes only tie off onto it, that's not a good use of the dollars for the city. So the residents in there, those 45 or whatever residents, it's gonna cost them between, what, $721 to $1,051 basically if they tie off on it?
Yes.
Okay. They've gotta be willing to step forward and say, we want the water and we'll pay this.
To pay collectively, you want to recoup the entire $300,000?
No, and that wouldn't even be what we would do. So if you have 45 homes, and worst case scenario.
Yeah, sir, you have to understand, if you don't.
No, I don't.
We're not, the $320,000 that it's gonna cost to put that water line in is pipe in the ground. Where we'll make some money, or we'll maybe get some of our return on our investment, is gonna be in water usage, okay? When somebody turns the spigot on. The money that we've identified here in the 5/8 inch short meter and the tie-on fee and the plumbing permit fee, that's really just basically our cost to go out there and put a meter into the ground. Okay, it has really nothing to do with the hard cost of the $322,000. That's our cost to put it out there. So we're really.
And we have to have enough of those homeowners are gonna want to tie off on it, so it justifies the expense with the water bill that they're gonna be paying for using the water.
And let
So
me
you're
add-
saying that
let me add
there's
one
not
thing.
gonna be anything about $7,000
So
if you express your interest?
The $7,000 is.
We do have to
it-
make disclosure. We don't want to hide anything, and I'm sure that would be part of the letter, but the letter's just, again, trying to gin up interest based on the petition that you guys gave us, and that's probably what we're going to be using, those names and sending those letters out. But we have to make full disclosure as to the cost to each homeowner. And Mr. Moore, I think you had something to add?
Yeah, and I was gonna add, I mean, every homeowner has to pay the meter fee and the long service fee. I mean, even in a development, the city doesn't pay that. The developer pays it, or a homeowner will pay it. So that's something that they're not tacking on to you guys as, I mean, that's, every home has to pay that fee. So if you could get if the city could run the main trunk line, the main line, and there's not a cost to the homeowners, I mean, that's a pretty good deal. And they're just saying, if I'm understanding you, Guy, if you're a single lot owner, you're not having to pay that $7,000. You're just having to pay the meter and the service line. But then if you're, and I know there's some 5-acre tracts in there, a guy could come in and put a little cul-de-sac in and have 5, say 3/4 lots or whatever. Now, the developer would be out the street paving, and he's gonna have to extend the water line. But if I'm understanding it, then that developer would have to pay he's
Yes.
gonna have to pay $7,000 5 times.
Yes, sir.
So it's encouraging development for that area, and it's also providing a single lot owner the ability to tie on at a very good rate. So it's a really good deal, but we just wanna
Oh, yeah,
to-
yeah, I agree
to
with,
table
based
it
on that
So we can have
clarification.
more
that-
information, and the mayor he had mentioned earlier, we could have a neighborhood meeting and be able to talk about this more on
Yeah.
as it
Yeah, I agree,
goes.
it's a good deal if the cost of the main line is covered, and then the tie-on fees are, as you said, everybody has to pay those.
No way, shape, or form trying to recoup the $325,000 on the backs of the homeowners.
I guess my point was just be careful about drafting the petition not to
Well, it
accidentally or
won't be a-
intentionally
it
tamp
won't
down
be a
interest
petition.
based on cost.
It won't be a petition, it'll be a form letter that goes out to the residents like we did once before.
Mhm.
And addressed to the homeowner.
And could that be done at a meeting where there's,
Yeah, I think that's really the best way to do it, because the letter, there will be questions that will come, we won't draft a perfect letter, there will be questions, and so I think having an opportunity to explain it would be the best thing to do.
That's a good idea. All right, thank you.
Thank you, guys. So, we are taking no action on this
Yes,
agenda item?
that's correct.
Taking no action on this agenda item, we'll move into discussion item 5.
This is discussion consideration of accepting a year-end report presented by Gallagher on the City of Midwest City's Employees' Health Benefits Plan. Christie, would you come on up? Billy, you may need to kind of go through the slides. We should.
Part of the agenda, Jay, if you hit the agenda, it's probably still up.
I'm sorry I didn't give him advance warning that I was gonna make him do this.
We'll take care of that later tonight.
Okay.
Technically challenged.
There we go.
So this is the stewardship report that Gallagher Benefit Services created for the City of Midwest City concerning their health plan for the last fiscal year. So we will start out with the total plan cost on page 2. Your budgeted cost was a little over $6 million, and the actual cost came in at $6,063,000. The $2,000 variance from what we expected the city to spend on their health benefits for the plan year running 7/1 of 2016 through 6/30 of 2017. Couple of observations that were made on your Blue Preferred plan, which is your slightly smaller network. The only plans that are currently running at a deficit are your pre- and post-retiree plans. So your pre-65 was running a slight deficit of a little over $8,000, and your post-65 retirees we're running at a deficit of a little over $57,000. On your Blue Options plan, it was running at a higher deficit of about $246,000 for your pre-65 retirees. Your active employee population did not run over the expected cost. Next page is your high-cost claimants. Your high-cost claimants account for about 21.6% of your gross paid claims. You have 11 of those claimants that are over $75,000, and you have 4 that are over $100,000. All 4 of those are dependents. You have 2 dependent children and 2 spouses that are those high-cost claimants. On the next page, on your medical plan changes that were made for that plan year, we did change a provider network to a combined Blue Preferred and Blue Options, and we moved it from the Blue Choice network, Blue Options, which did achieve a better network saturation for the city. And the primary driver behind making those network changes are the amount of discounts that is negotiated with the provider and the carrier, which is Blue Cross Blue Shield. CRX is a new pharmacy program that was rolled out to increase participation. That allows some employees to be able to buy certain prescription drugs without a copay, but at a significant savings to the city. So you can see that we rolled it out. We didn't have a lot of participants, but as of current, we're at 47 participants that are participating in it at some level. We also held our pharmacy review meeting with our pharmacy practice leader at Gallagher. On the next slide, the Delta Dental Plan cost, your claims paid were almost $394,000, fixed cost $32,000, for a total plan cost of $426,000, and your budget plan cost was $467,000 with a surplus of $41,000 on your dental plan. For your July 1st, 2017 plan year, there were some medical benefit changes made. We eliminated the Blue Options plan and moved everyone into the Blue Preferred plan. Again, that was to achieve a greater contract with Blue Cross Blue Shield with those providers and drive a little bit more savings to the plan. The autism benefit was expanded under mental health parity. That was due to an Affordable Care Act regulation. Transgender services, limited transgender services were approved by the committee, and we modified the retiree eligibility language, and that was a result of a committee meeting that with retirees to move forward with that. Our pharmacy network, you moved to the Advantage network, and what that really means is that Blue Cross is no longer contracting with CVS, so they're now out of network, and so in order to achieve a better discount on your pharmacy, CVS is now no longer in network with the city's plan as well. There was additional pharmacy changes made coming up for January 1st, 2018. The drug list is going to be moved to a formulary plan, performance formulary plan. That was recommended by, again, our pharmacy director, and that just enables employees to still be able to get the medications they need, but it's just a smaller list so that they can drive better discounts with the pharmacy providers for those particular prescriptions. The last slide is the observations. All of the high-cost claimants over $100,000 are dependents. There has been discussion on whether or not to consider a spousal surcharge. That is just a consideration. Nothing has been done or changed on that. The pharmacy spend is where the highest spend is occurring right now within your medical plan. It actually looks like you're a much larger plan than you really are, and that was really the driving reasons behind making those pharmacy changes. There's also been some discussion on finding ways to allow police and fire easier access for mental health benefits when needed. They are already included in your current plan, but deductible and co-insurance applies first. And what we're trying to do is figure out how can we remove any barrier so that those police and fire can get the mental health benefits when they need them without any barrier to getting those services. That is still in discussion. Do you have any questions?
Any questions or further discussion?
I have a statement, and I want to publicly thank you for the work that you did with our city, because
Thank you.
there was a lot of controversy in some other municipalities about this. They got a lot of bad press. And through the direction of the city manager and our HR person, we got ahead of it, and you were part of it. Thank you.
Well, you're quite welcome. You guys have made some changes, but it's going in the right direction, and that's a very positive thing. So thank you for letting me work on it with you.
Is there any further discussion on this item?
I would like to just comment that obviously LNH is a very, very important benefit to our employees and to our retirees, and it's a big number. You saw some of those, but it's in this year's budget we're spending $7.5 million to provide health insurance and dental insurance and all of the other things that go along with providing those two things. So it's an important piece of what we do, and we take it very seriously.
Any further discussion on this item? Hearing none, the chair would entertain a motion to accept.
Motion to accept. Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed? Abstentions. Next item.
This is discussion consideration of awarding the bid and entering into a contract with MTZ Construction, Inc. in the amount of $25,647.50 for the Air Depot Boulevard Railroad Construction Project. We are gonna ask that the council take no action on this. We want to continue to, because of the fact of that we would accept some responsibility for maintenance of this railroad crossing should we make improvements to it, what we would like to do is to work on securing a lease interest in the railroad crossing. That would legitimize any work that we did on the railroad crossing, and it would also be beneficial to us in the long run as we move towards rails to trail and through and also the commuter rail system as part of the regional transit conversation. So we feel like the railroad crossing is in adequate condition at this point in time, and so we would recommend no action at this time.
Chair recognizes no action be taken on this item. We'll move on to the next discussion item.
This is discussion consideration of approving an ordinance amending the Midwest City Municipal Code, Chapter 28, miscellaneous by amending Article 6, Weapons, Section 28-105, Hour Sales, Firearms, Section 28-107, Discharge of Bows and Arrows, and Section 28-108, Pointing and Discharging Firearms, etc., providing for repealer and severability. Mr. Coleman?
This item was in your packet last month for informational purposes only. Tonight, we're requesting action on an amendment to Chapter 28 that will allow combat simulations businesses to operate in our community. We have two that are interested right now, and it will also open the door for a possible firing range. We've talked to a person about possibly opening a business like that. We're in very preliminary stages with him, but I wanted to just point out the proposed changes to Chapter 28. In Section 28-105, the current hours that you're allowed to sell firearms is between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. We're going to change that to 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. because, as you know, we already have some sporting goods retailers in town that have these products. Section 28-107 is changed to allow archery ranges provided that they have the appropriate certificate of occupancy for the zoning district in which the business will operate. In Section C, 28-108, we're proposing to change B. It shall be unlawful for any person to shoot or discharge a firearm within the corporate limits of the city except where legal authority has been granted. This will allow an exception for firing ranges and entertainment venues where a certificate of occupancy has been issued for such purpose. And then the last change under C, it shall be unlawful for any person without legal authority to point, aim, or gesture toward any other person with any firearm or instrument of archery. As previously described, our ordinance is quite broad in its definition of a firearm. It's basically anything that will shoot a projectile from a slingshot to a airsoft gun, a BB gun, etc. This will allow weapons specifically equipped to discharge non-metallic projectiles at muzzle velocities less than 400 feet per second. This would be typical of a paintball gun or an airsoft gun or some of the other combat simulations weapons you see out there, and staff recommends approval.
I would also mention that the police department has reviewed and fully supports the proposed ordinance, correct?
Correct.
Move to approve.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Any further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Next item.
This is discussion consideration of approving and passing an ordinance amending Chapter 30 Parks and Recreation of the Midwest City Code, Article 1, in general by amending Section 30-2A, Acts prohibited in city parks, establishing an effective date and providing for repeal and severability. Mr. Sullivan?
Mayor and Council, this is, we've seen an increase amount of motorized vehicles in our parks on unappropriate surfaces. We've had some damage to the skip trail as a result of motorized vehicles, and this is just our attempt to give PD another tool to use to try to eliminate some of that activity. We did make the change that you requested and added the term unauthorized.
Move to approve.
Got a motion and I have a second. Any further discussion on this item? Hearing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Next item.
This is discussion consideration of approval of a resolution, 1, approving the trust indenture creating the Midwest City Economic Development Authority, 2, approving and accepting beneficial interest for the city of Midwest City and the authority, and 3, appointing trustees of the authority. Mr. Williams, there he is. He's made it from the city of Nichols Hills and is now in the city of Midwest City. And
I'm glad to be here. 5:30.
So,
Mayor, members of the council, this item does create a new trust. It's the Midwest City Economic Development Trust. It appoints trustees. The members of the city council are the trustees. The mayor is the chairman of the trustees. Further, it accepts beneficial interest. That is, the city accepts beneficial interest in this trust. This trust is, it's a 2017 trust, as opposed to the municipal authority, which is a 1960s trust. And things have changed in the 50-plus years that have passed, and the municipal authority trust indenture has been amended from time to time. But to understand what its powers are, you have to read several amendments, and so this is a better way to go about having a trust and then issuing debt. And as we know, there are obligations that are intended to be issued to provide for financing for the town center. And so we believe this is the very best way to put our best foot forward with the market, the bond market, in order to sell these prospective bonds. If there are questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
And Mr. Williams, it is correct to say that even if we found that the bond issue was not the alternative that we wanted to pursue, we would still need this trust in order to be able to facilitate a private refinancing of the town center project, correct?
That is correct, yes. In fact, it's envisioned from your prior actions that the real estate beneath the town center will be transferred to this new trust, and this new trust is the entity that will handle matters involving the town center. which is a superior method as opposed to the current arrangement. Yep.
Is there any further discussion or questions?
Yes, I reviewed it. It all looks good.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on this item? Hearing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstention? Next order.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Next item is discussion consideration of extending the existing agreement on file with the City of Choctaw to provide emergency animal control services for the remainder of the fiscal year 2017-2018 through June 30th, 2018, and approve the Town of Forest Park from December 31, 2017 through June 30th, 2018.
Second motion.
I have a motion and a second to approve this. Any further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Next item.
This is discussion consideration of extending the existing agreements on file with the cities of Choctaw, Hara, Nakoma Park, and the town of Jones to provide animal care services for the remainder of fiscal year 2017-18 through June 30th, 2018, and provide the town of Forest Park from December 31, 2017 through June 30th, 2018.
Motion to approve.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on this item? Hearing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Next item.
This is discussion consideration of appointing a new member to the Midwest City Tree Board for a 3-year term ending on November 10th, 2020.
I have nominated a Mr. Dave Williams.
There's been a nomination made.
Second.
Chair, to entertain a motion.
Oh, make a motion.
Motion to approve.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Next item.
This is discussion consideration of appointing a new member to the Midwest City Park and Recreation Board for a 3-year term ending November 10th, 2020.
Motion for a Mr. Mannings. Motion to approve.
I have a motion for Mr. Manning. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Next item.
This is, we have an addendum, and that would be discussion and consideration of establishment of an Innovation District Stakeholders Committee that will meet on call for the development of the Innovation District Plan. You have a memo from Mr. Harless about this with a list of suggested committee members. Staff would recommend the appointment of the committee and those proposed committee members.
Move to approve.
Second. I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Ladies and gentlemen, we move into new business public discussion of our agenda. Is there anyone in the audience that has anything to bring before the council? Mrs. Galbraith, did you want to address council on Windsong issue?
She said not at this time.
Okay, thank you. No further discussion. I hereby adjourn council. We will move into the
Recess.
We have to recess. Recess the council meeting.
recess.
Yeah, recess.
Okay, and we're going to recess council and move into the Midwest City Municipal Authority agenda. Call this meeting to order. We have 2 discussion items.
This is approval of the minutes from the November 28, 2017 meeting.
Move to approve.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions. Next item.
This is discussion consideration of approving and entering into a sponsorship and marketing consulting agreement with Star Solutions in the amount of $3,000 plus sponsorship sales commissions to effectively assist the city of Midwest City in achieving its goals and initiatives for the 2018 Made in Oklahoma Fest.
Move to approve.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions. Ladies and gentlemen, we move into the new business public discussion, Midwest City Municipal Authority agenda. Is there anyone that has anything to bring before the municipal authority? Hearing none, we are hereby adjourned and call to order the Midwest City Memorial Hospital Authority. We have 5 or 6 discussion items.
First item is approval of the minutes from the November 28th, 2017 meeting.
Move to approve.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions. Next item.
This is discussion consideration of renewing the agreement with Capital Decisions, Inc. in the total amount of $70,000 to continue to provide consultant services regarding economic, community development, and redevelopment interest in Midwest City for the period from January 1, 2018 through June 30th, 2018.
I have, person that we're having the contract here is here, right?
Yes, he's
That's
in the
better.
audience, Mr. Reskovac.
I'd like to have some discussion with him before we move on.
Yes, sir.
You want to come on down?
Yes, sir.
Just, I guess you
J.R.
gotta tell-
Reskovac, Capital Decisions, Washington, D.C.
Okay, you heard earlier of my discussion about being a little concerned about spending money on a flag, correct?
Yes, sir.
And how the citizens of Midwest City hold us accountable
Yes, sir.
for money that we're spending.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I have some concerns, and hopefully you can remedy those concerns, but
Okay.
we were given information from the city manager's office about what has gone on with your employment or our contract with you over the last few years. And it's a significant amount of money that we're paying a lobbyist in DC.
Correct.
And the first question that I'd really like to get an answer on is that a couple months ago, a delegation of people from Midwest City went to Washington. And from what we've been told, they weren't given an opportunity to meet with you while they were there. And that, when that came back to us, you know, when we're paying that kind of money, you know, I'd kind of like to know what.
Well, I think that was a miscommunication issue. I can show you a stream of emails. I was in communication with Tim Lyon. I know Rick was there. Councilman Dawkins and I talked last week. I did apologize for not seeing him. I'd asked for the agenda for the chamber the Friday before and even the week before. I never received one. However, I did invite them to come to our offices on Monday. They were unable to have breakfast or lunch that day due to a Pentagon tour, and Tim responded by email that they weren't going to be able to make it. They left Wednesday morning, but because of that, I had already had a planned trip back here to the state that Tuesday morning. So it was not, I have hosted that delegation for years, and it has never been my intent, and it's beyond the pale to think that I would ignore them or see them. But we had a series of email communications about that when we were in town, and I did apologize.
And you now have a council that kind of reads everything too, so and
Yeah.
I'm not saying in the past that
Sure.
nobody may have asked you, but the next question I have is, we were all provided a document that shows what you've aided us with over the last few years, and that stops at 2012.
Yeah.
So the fiscal years 13, 14, 15, 16, and 17, we spent a significant amount of money with your lobbyist group. In the information that we've been provided is we haven't received anything back.
Okay, well,
in-
those, yeah.
that's a lot of money.
That document does not reflect all the work. We have not stopped our work as after 2012. That money reflects money that was congressionally earmarked, which is no longer in effect. I will tell you that we have had and I'll be happy to pull those records back for you over those years, but we've had congressional justification, letters for grants. We've done a variety of, and Guy can speak to this, but a variety of non-money issues that we've been able to help the city with. So this was just not that money. That document reflected earmarked monies that's no longer congressionally available. We've provided a series of grants. We're obviously, as you well know, we're hopefully in the process of receiving about at least four in the spring. There's going to be a big, if I can go into this, if you don't mind. Just over the last 2 months, we got FEMA officials in Washington, D.C. in a conference call directly with the fire department to go through their AFG grant application in order that they can refine it before the F-18 process goes through. As you know, they've been unsuccessful in the last 2 cycles. We did write had congressional support for those. We actually had a member of Congress call the former director of FEMA in support of Midwest City's application, our request.
Have you met the new fire director for FEMA?
I have not.
I bet you Chief Norman could introduce you
Correct.
to him.
And we're in phone communication quite regularly. Oh, I know that. Yeah, I know that.
He's actually a friend of mine. So
absolutely. And then in my June discussions with the mayor, I indicated I think it would be appropriate to have the General Services Administration at least look at who's the federal government's, and that's not, I don't think, in the document I provided, who's the federal government's real estate director, to look at Heritage Park Mall for future federal leasing requirements. The GSA is still pretty active. They've got a new administrator just appointed and confirmed by the Senate. They're still pretty active in Oklahoma in trying to identify some federal facilities for lease. And so Mr. Coleman has been put in contact with the GSA folks. They've uploaded some information, I guess, on the GSA website with respect to the facility, and I know that's been an ongoing, and the mayor and I have talked about that, an ongoing pressure point. I will also tell you that we were also successful this year in getting $60 million included in the Environment, Energy, and Public Works Committee budget for environmental infrastructure. That money then will be used by the Corps to qualify for competitive applications for the Power Boost Water Storage Station that we have a $2 million authorization from that we've been trying for 2 years. I will tell you that we had a member of the delegation talk personally with the Chief of the Corps of Engineers about this project. We have another letter in, and the money in an omnibus will probably be appropriated probably right after January 15th. And so by the end of February, the Corps will release our fiscal year 18 civil works plan, which will be a $2 million expenditure to your match that has been provided by the money we got. I will tell you that all of these authorizations that were in that 07 bill are going to expire September 30th of this year. So we have a couple of identified legislative vehicles to reauthorize the Midwest City project. And that would, from what I understand and what I've seen, would be the only project that will probably be reauthorized of all the 15 Oklahoma projects that were authorized in 07. Some of those requirements have gone away. Obviously, yours hasn't. So that, the AFG, I will tell you, we can talk about the President's infrastructure plan. We've talked with Dave Gribben, who's the Chief of Transportation Policy for the White House. I've talked a little bit with DOT, but it appears as if they want to do welfare reform after tax reform, use some of that savings for welfare reform to fund a transportation bill. The U.S. Chamber already came out yesterday and said that it'll be our #1 legislative priority next year. And what's going to happen is the Trump administration is going to emphasize some public-private partnership. And so instead of devolving all this to state like ODOT or CDOT or TDOT or whatever, we're hoping and we're thinking that some local communities will have a chance to compete for those So they'll be asking for applications for cost share. The fast lane grants are now infra grants. There's already one in for the I-40 Douglas interchange, $94 million federal share. We anticipate those awards. Those were restructured after the Trump administration came in, so they changed it from fast lane grants to infra grants, and we anticipate that those announcements will be in the spring too. And there are 2 Oklahoma projects that ODOT submitted, and one's the I-40 Douglas interchange. So, I mean, there's some things on the horizon, and you know, I'm at top of my head, I could come through some other things, but not all of this was money oriented, and that list is not finite.
There's one other statement about your contract.
Yes, sir.
And then a request in it.
You bet.
In your, I guess it's a work consultant agreement, it talks about 2 quarterly payments of $10,000, total $20,000 for long distance telephone and communication postage. I mean,
well,
when's the last time we mailed something?
Correct. That wording needs to be changed, and I will freely admit that language has been in that contract for a number of years. That will be modified, and we would be happy to discuss a cost reduction in that area. I say that because times have changed. We used to have a lot of document presentation to the delegation. We used to have large groups from Midwest City visit to Washington, and we assumed a lot of that cost. But we still do have some business expenses that need to be addressed.
You know, but it says long distance phone call.
Correct,
postage.
and that will be. We're happy to modify that.
So that can that be done after the contract is voted on, or how does that work?
We'd have to make some kind of a change in this contract, wouldn't we?
I think the approval could be approve the contract subject to revising, you know, section 9B to however you want it to read.
And I will tell you that we did agree with a contract correction. I guess that the city attorney, Terry, presented to me a couple weeks ago indicating that there's been a proviso in the contract that makes the renewal automatic if nobody acts on it. But that's irrelevant because you all have to encumber the money and actually take the vote. And the purpose of this was, historically, is that we did this every 6 months for a reason. You know, most of these contracts that we have nationally are annual, and we do it for a reason, to be accountable. No question about that.
I would request that we revisit at least that line, because that seems a little bit out of, in one statement I'll make to you, and
you bet.
I'm going to take you at your word on everything you've said, but
yeah.
there's one thing that is, if you follow local, especially here in Oklahoma, and I heard this from Mr. Dawkins because he was up there in Washington, D.C., we need something done up there with sales tax, intercent sales
yeah.
tax. And that is critical, and it's not going to be just critical for Midwest City, but it's going to be critical for a lot of the cities in Oklahoma.
Correct. And I will tell you that we have a pretty large firm, sir, and we have a lot of partners that represent a lot of communities around the country in certain areas, and everybody to a T, we're all on board that. We visit with Senator Enzi's office. I represent a community in Wyoming. He's the author of the Internet Sales Tax Marketplace Fairness Act. They're very well aware of our concern, and to a person, when there's an opportunity, usually at the end of the year, in the legislative year, because that seems to when everything gets done in Congress, both Senator Enzi and Senator Durbin, the Democrat whip from Illinois, are the ones that are always trying to insert that in the process, and they're trying their darndest to get some proviso in there. The risk we run is the longer we wait, and you know this, and there's court rulings, like the Colorado ruling, you know, and the state agreements that are made with certain companies, it becomes a problem. And I've seen the Oklahoma Tax Commission estimates on city by city, and you're right. I mean, The state chamber is all over it, as you well know, and every individual chamber of commerce in the state.
Especially since we don't get ad valorem either, so
Yes, sir.
that's critical, like I said, just not Midwest City.
Absolutely agree.
And I don't mean to beat you up, but, I'll quit and let
No,
somebody
it's
else
fine.
join on the fight, but the thing that's important to me is that we hold our employees to a standard. They all have objectives, they have standards, and there's an expectation. And I can just say, in 6 months, if it comes back and it's blank,
I understand.
I would have a hard time voting.
No, I
second
completely
time.
understand. I mean, this is always this way, this relationships has been historically, and I completely agree. I don't get paid for nothing. I mean, with all due respect, I'm an Oklahoman, even though I live in D.C. I understand the dynamic here, and there's not a client that doesn't expect that.
I might state that, with permission, that you can always approve this contract with the exception of 9B and authorizing the general manager to negotiate the terms of 9B.
I think, and I'm sure it's been just rubber stamp for the last several years, but I think you figured out, I know you had a meeting with the accountant today, and if you survived that, so we read everything.
Yeah, and Sean, if I can kind of talk about your idea, I mean, you all authorized the Innovation District situation, and let me just comment on that if you don't mind. I mean,
Can you speak up just a little
yeah,
bit?
there's some added value that we can add to that. I mean, when we used to have the University of Central Oklahoma as a client, and we actually, at one point, we actually introduced them to Bruce Katz from the Brookings Institution, and he's Mr. Innovation District nationally, all right? I mean, Billy, you know him. Metropolitan Revolution. So what eventually happened was the Oklahoma City Chamber of Commerce hired him. They didn't want to come to Oklahoma. We urged him to, because he was going to go to Indianapolis and to some of the Rust Belt folks. But he came, and as you all know, the chambers really jumped over, all of their report on the Innovation District with the GE, with the Health Sciences Center, with the downtown academia. So, I mean, Mayor or whoever, we'd be happy to help in that effort too, because we've had some play there.
Hey, I want to just interject one thing. I've been to Washington, D.C. several times, and JR can get me in anybody's office I need to get into. I mean, I'm always impressed when I can get into any senator's office in Washington, D.C., and usually their first words are, "Hey, JR, how's the wife and kids?" I mean, and some of the things that he does, which they're really not monetary, as in that it looks like dollars and cents. There are some areas where we need something done from a senator, and we'll get it. I'll give you just one quick one. I was on the plane one time to D.C. On the plane with me was a group of council people from Yukon and a group of council people from Norman. We were all going up for the same reason, and that was to talk to people. And when I told the ones from Norman who we were going to see, they said, "How did you get in to see them?" I mean, and I give JR credit. I mean, and these are both United States senators, and when we walk in, and one of them, it was, "Hey, JR, thanks a lot for letting me use your building for the 4th of July fireworks." I mean, you got to have those contacts.
Let me give you something else of substance quickly. The President signed the National Defense Authorization Bill today. Obviously, good news for Tinker. One thing that is important in Midwest City is the Shared Services Agreement. Tim and I have been in discussion. Obviously, his work with the National Association is key, but we provided some timing, contact, and I guess logistics assistance with respect to that. Midwest City was interested in, because of some legalese up at DOD, extending those arrangements from 5 to 10 years, which will make that more fruitful for you all as a community. And that got signed into law today. The provision was in the Senate, not in the House. They did a conference. It was included, so it's the law. So that's really going to help you all, I think. Guy, you can speak to that probably, but I think that, of course, that's Tim's leadership, but we were able to help with some issues with respect to that in terms of timing in terms of, and, you know, he's happy to do that.
And
So-
I can speak on that real quickly,
Yeah.
because we talked about that when
Yeah,
I was at
correct.
the Pentagon.
Yeah.
And when we were in Senator Inhofe's office, when we brought that up, he said, yeah, JR's been talking to me about it. I mean.
Well, yeah.
Several of the things that Pat said, I do agree with. I do think that you're needed, but I also think that and over the life of the relationship that Midwest City has had with your firm and with you, we have gotten more money than we've ever thought of paying out. However, one of the things that I've been really big on over the last year is re-looking at long-term relationships and contracts and everything else to make sure that we are still getting the same bang for our buck that we used to. I think giving you the 6 more months, especially with what's working, is an extremely good idea. I think meaningfully lowering those fees is a great gesture on your part, because we do have to watch out for the money that we spend for our citizens. At the end of 6 months, if we're still looking at a 0, I'll shake your hand and we'll part as friends.
I understand that.
Well, I say that, I'm only one vote, but.
No, I understand the performance parameter, and Councilmember Byrne makes it. I understand. I absolutely understand.
I'll make a motion to approve the contract, pulling Section 9, subsection B out for staff and JR to work out and flesh out and bring back to us in January.
I second.
I have a motion and I have a second. Any further discussion on this item? Hearing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you
Opposed?
all.
Abstentions?
Thanks,
JR,
and thanks for
being
thanks for
here.
the courtesy and your support. Thank you.
Next item for discussion.
Sorry, my iPad's not working very well. This is discussion, consideration of action to reallocate assets, change fund managers, or make changes in the statement of investment policy guidelines and objectives. No action is necessary on this. Next item is discussion, consideration of approving the Fourth Amendment to the Sooner Rose Phase 2 Theater Development Financing Assistance Agreement with Midwest City Warren Theaters, Inc. Robert?
As you all know, we were supposed to close on the Warren property a few months ago. There has been 3 extensions thus far. We are asking for 1 more extension. The reason they're not ready to close is twofold. Number 1, we still have to resolve an underground storage tank issue on the northeast corner of Buena Vista Avenue and Southeast 15th Street. We think we'll have a certificate of closure on that possibly by the end of this month, and we don't think any later than mid-January. And secondly, as you've also seen in your packet, Warren Theaters is wanting to amend the planned unit development for this development and to move to a surface-type detention system, and that amendment is required. It will be processed in the month of January, and hopefully we'll have it resolved by the end so that we can allow for a February closing.
So when we had the groundbreaking a couple of months ago, he was planning on being open before Thanksgiving of next year. Has this moved this back, or is he still planning on being up and open at the same time?
I think we're still on the same schedule. A lot of it, as you know, is weather dependent, and thus far we've had some really good weather. And Sooner Investment, you may remember the first amendment to the contract allowed Sooner Investment to do some excavation and other dirt work on the Warren tract, and they have done about $100,000 worth thus far. So there has been progress, and we hope that the weather holds out and they're able to get it open by November of 2018.
Councilman, he also mentioned that they, through some redesign of the building, that they expect that they're going to be able to build the building quicker than before. So.
Any further discussion on this item?
I had one question. The underground detention was going to be quite a bit more expensive. I'm sure there's adjustments for all that.
Underground detention was $1.3 million, I believe. We're not sure how much the detention pond is going to cost at this point, the regular, because we're asking for some other amenities that aren't found in these. Actually, we're asking for a retention type pond where there will always be water in it, and there will be a water feature, and there will be additional landscaping you probably wouldn't see on most commercial developments, just to make the entrance area aesthetically pleasing.
Okay, I was gonna bring this up under the next item, number 5, which really seems to me the point of discussion about the revision to the PUD, but since we're on this discussion point, I'm just gonna bring it up now. Again, you know, the materials that we were provided is just sort of a rough sketch of the proposed location of the surface detention pond. There's no design related to that, and it's noted that the design of the final product could differ from the illustration. We don't have the cost associated with it. We don't have the other items, and in fairness, as you know, Robert and Guy, we've had some discussion on this via email about my concerns about these changes, and one of the aspects is that, you know, to the untrained eye, these ponds may look like nothing more than an empty pit as they remain dry most of the time unless there's a significant storm event. Now, I understand the request is to have a water feature and to have a fountain associated with it, et cetera, but that's a request, and there's no guarantee. So in going in and agreeing to amend the PUD without any plans put forward for exactly how it's gonna look,
Tonight, we're just asking to grant Midwest City Warren Theaters permission to make that application. As the application progresses, first to Planning Commission and then to City Council, we will require the details that will make this better than your typical detention pond. We don't have cost estimates yet. We expect Mr. Haynes with the engineering firm to have those shortly, but we're not picking up the tab on this. This is still on Warren Theaters to design it and to build it to the way that we approve. So you will see an amendment to the PUD possibly at the January 23rd meeting.
Actually, I think we're shooting for the first meeting in January.
The 9th.
And let me say, Councilperson Eads, by going through the modification to the PUD, that creates a standard and establishes how the property will be developed. And so, in terms of getting additional security that we will get what we want out there, the PUD will accomplish that more so than just a handshake and a nod.
Well, and again, that's my concern, and again, my concern is, you know, the Ranchette neighborhood is right there. They had a lot of concerns about the stormwater detention pond to start with. That was explained to them and discussed with them, and what the proposal was in great detail, and sort of everybody moved forward with that reliance, and now we're making this revision. So I have some trepidation, so I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page.
Well, we certainly had those as well, and that's why we chose this course of action.
Move to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on this item? Hearing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions. Next item?
This is discussion consideration of authorizing an application to amend the plan unit development in effect on the Midwest City Memorial Hospital Authority property located at approximately 5901 Southeast 15th Street, part of the southwest quarter of Section 4, Township 11 North, Range 2 West of the Indian Meridian, Midwest City, Oklahoma County, Oklahoma, and authorizing Bill Warren, Midwest City Warren Theater, to file the PUD amendment application for the described property and to take all actions necessary or appropriate to amend the PUD of the described property. Again, this is similar. This is the agenda item that you were just referring to, which gives Mr. Warren the authority to amend the PUD to incorporate a more traditional above-ground detention situation in lieu of the underground detention.
But, and again, those plans will be subject to.
And you will, and he will have to submit, as part of his plans, detailed drawings showing exactly what will be built. Yes, ma'am.
Move to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Next item?
This is discussion consideration of entering into an agreement with SCS Engineers for an amount not to exceed $24,681 to perform a Phase 2 environmental site assessment, ESA, for 8826 and 8828 Southeast 29th Street. Robert?
There's a lot of information included in your packet, so I'm just going to give you a little overview on why we're recommending SCS. They've been actively involved in the fuel tank, the underground storage tank removal over on Buena Vista, and they've done us a good job. We took proposals from two other firms, and we just felt like they had the best proposal and described what we desired to have done in a more accurate way than others, and they've been very timely with their reports on the Southeast 15th Street project. I'll try to answer any questions that you all have.
There's somebody from DEQ here.
There's someone from DEQ and also Amy Jaloski from SCS is here to answer any questions about the contract and talk about their proposal.
The question I have is not necessarily on the contract, it's on the issue on 29th Street.
Okay.
Is that according to the documents that we were provided, this may be better coming from DEQ, is that back in 2009, according in your memo, it states that the Hall Trust state property was released for unrestricted use, correct?
Yes, that was actually taken, I believe that was from 2000, I can't remember the date because I don't have it in front of me, but
November
that was part
31st, 2009.
Okay, that was part of the report done on the property at that time. We have representatives here from the Oklahoma Department of Environmental Quality Land Protection Division. There was an addendum to your agenda tonight. They were going to do just an overview on the Brownfields program. At this point, there hasn't been a whole lot more testing done. That's why we're asking for permission to enter into the contract for the Phase 2 environmental site assessment.
Do we know if there's a problem there then? Or I know the paper thinks the news thinks there is. Is there a problem there?
Well, we've got we've had two Phase 1 environmental site assessments done on the property. One before we acquired what is known as the whole property in April of 2014, which was 8826 and 8828 Southeast 29th Street, and also included 3100 South Engle Road, although I don't think that parcel is individually identified in the report. And as you remember, prior to our purchase of the additional Newey family property and R2C2 properties in 2016, we also had a Phase 1 done. And at that time, both reports had mentioned that there were barrels that were entombed, for lack of a better term, underneath the billboard out there that had soil in them from where where remediation was done on the former Eagle Industries site. At no point did the reports specifically identify TCEs or any other chemical compounds that the person that was quoted in the Oklahoman article had outlined.
So basically, we're kind of stuck right now. If we want to develop that property, we as the landlord or the owner now have got to remediate it.
I'm not completely familiar with everything, all the terms that DEQ uses, but there's one called I think it's bona fide prospective purchaser, and that means you really didn't know what was problematic about the property before you decided to purchase it, and you went through the steps necessary to make sure it was going to be a clean property. I think we qualify given their guidelines for that, and that gives us the possible ability to enter into the Brownfields program, which offers us some protection. I think your statement's right. We're going to have to take some involvement in this and to move forward with the testing just to see if there is indeed a problem out there.
With that being said, Mr. Burns, could I suggest that we go ahead and vote on this contract with SCS and allow DEQ to come down with their discussion? With that being said, the chair to entertain a motion on the contract with SCS to do a Phase 2 study on the property.
still on the discussion point though, in fairness, I'm interested to see, because to me, I mean, we bought this barrel of monkeys and now we're stuck with it. And I would like to know what our opportunity is if we engage SCS to figure out what's there and it comes out with the worst case scenario, whether we qualify for brownfield or get some additional information from ODEQ, since they're in the audience anyhow, before we vote on whether we're gonna move forward with this contract or not. I mean, otherwise it's gonna sit as.
I think there's really a alternative solution, Ms. Eads, on, we need to do the environmental study to figure out what we got down there. And then we need the guidance from DEQ on how to proceed if we do have an issue. So you're right, we're in a quandrum, and we're gonna have to move forward with the study in order to figure out what we got.
Well, and Mr. Mayor, if you want to answer that, or Robert, if you want to answer that, is there no testing that is available to us through the brownfield program or otherwise? I mean, I'm not aware of what ODEQ could offer us, as opposed to us having to hire SCS to go out and do the testing. I mean, if they could give it to us at free or a reduced cost, that's what I'm questioning. I mean,
That's an excellent question, and in some cases, the Brownfields program will pay for some environmental testing. The problem that we have is, I mean, I've been talking to different developers about this parcel at all the International Council Shopping Center events that I attend. I don't think we're ready to initiate any type of development out there until the Sooner Rose project is wrapped up, because we want to make sure we get the best tenants available for this time frame. As you know, these opportunities come and go depending on a variety of different things within the commercial market. So we're not ready to do anything yet. However, if we wait for a grant to pay for the testing and outside assistance, and then something does come along that's very attractive and we would like to move forward, then we'll be waiting on that assistance. This is an opportunity to spend $14,000 to $24,000 roughly to try to get some of this out of the way ahead of time. And hopefully the results come back and we don't have any problems. But in the event that we do, we'll be that much further ahead of the game, and we'll know that, yeah, we probably need to go ahead and move forward with a Brownfields program, if not before. The Brownfields program offers, I don't want to steal the thunder from people that know much better than I, but the Brownfields program offers some opportunities in insurance against spending more than we need to, and I'll let Dr. Cockey and her staff describe those in greater detail.
Why don't we just ask them to come on down?
I've got a question for.
Okay.
So, we've got these two properties, and I get confused as to which one's which.
Think of these as the same because they were purchased at the same time and they're under
But
the
blessed
same
off by DEQ that they were safe. They weren't contaminated, right?
They were. That was the opinion of the person that did the testing for the Phase 1 site assessments before we bought the Tubbs property, which is what we're talking about with 8826 and 8828, and prior to the purchase of the Newey properties. Keep in mind that a Phase 1 is basically looking at historical records for the properties and interviewing people that may have held title to the property or custodian over the property. And at the time, the fellow that was mentioned in the November 12th Oklahoman article had not been contacted. We had no reason to believe at that point that the chemicals described by that individual had been illegally disposed of at this location. We knew that there was radium content from the work they did on the instruments there, but we didn't know anything about the solvents or oil or anything else that was there. So the environmental consultant did exactly what they were supposed to as part of Phase 1 in my very novice opinion, and cleared the property. I can't tell you all of the interaction with DEQ with this property because the only thing I've seen is the letter, I believe, that some of you may have seen from 1997 that was outlined in that same article I quoted.
So do we need to bring DEQ?
They were, the Brownfields program overview was an addendum to the Hospital Authority agenda, so if you want to move to that item before you take a vote on this, I'll leave that up to the chairman.
I think we could just ask them to come on down and we can vote on this if the council so chooses to after after we hear from them?
Certainly.
Hi, I'm Rita Kotke. I'm with the Land Protection Division of the Oklahoma Department of Environmental Quality, and I run the remediations programs. I would like to know, do you want me to talk about the site first, or would you like me to talk about the brownfield program first?
Would you talk about the brown?
I'd like to just jump into the part of, is there any availability for us to get testing done on this property by DEQ or otherwise at no cost or reduced cost over what we're looking at paying SCS to do the site testing?
And is that called the brownfield program?
Well, we have a brownfield program that has several different units to it, basically. We offer targeted brownfield assessments, which would be something like this. Unfortunately, currently on this year's budget, we don't have existing funds to do that. And it will be, no, it'll be after September 1st of next year before we get additional funding, which puts us in a bind when offering these services. So currently we don't. EPA also offers that same service, except that it takes them about 11 months to contract it. So it depends on your timeline. If you can wait 11 months, the EPA can do a phase 2 environmental assessment of the property.
And again, we're looking at, Robert, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we're looking at pulling off ideally on the development of this area unless until Center Rose is finished, right? That was your comment earlier, unless there's some just sweetheart deal that falls into your lap on this area.
A couple of companies in particular.
So you're working on something that you can't tell us.
Mhm.
Which is fine.
We're always working.
So any holdup on this would hurt.
I wouldn't say there's an immediate possibility that we'll get a deal on this land, no. But I will say that there are seeds planted and there are companies aware of this property. I spoke to one as recently as the Dallas meeting back in November.
So without asking you to go into detail about it, I mean, my question is, in terms of the potential for the marketability of the development of this property, do you believe it is our best course to engage with SCS now and bite the bullet and pay the cost of this testing, or to hold out the somewhere between 9 to 11 months that it would take to either hopefully qualify under DEQ or qualify under EPA to get the testing done, hopefully at no cost?
I believe that it's better to do it now. I think with the publicity that has occurred surrounding this site, that to go out and find a developer that's willing to risk the millions of dollars it'll take to do anything there is going to be very difficult until we resolve the issue.
And I can throw another little kink into the problem. The United States Environmental Protection Agency headquarters has now shown interest in this. I guess some local folks may have complained to their senators or representatives. And so the headquarters contacted EPA Region 6, which serves this area, and now they are pushing us to do what's called a preliminary assessment of the site, and a preliminary assessment is the first step in putting it on the Superfund list. So we've talked to EPA, and we've asked them for the opportunity to see if anything's actually there, because we have no data at this point. And if we can show them that it's not as contaminated as everybody seems to think it is, then they'll back off.
But at the same time, I mean, if they were to put us on, sorry, at the same time, if they were to put us on the Superfund list, while that would prohibit the development of the area, it would also provide the means for cleanup of the area.
Yes, it would.
Without the millions of dollars of investment by us or by a developing entity.
And it would take decades.
A number of years.
Yeah.
At being
Superfund's
generous.
a very slow program, unless it's an emergency, and then they will send out the emergency response team.
So this preliminary stage that you're referencing, does that involve you doing the testing at the property
the
to
preliminary-
determine contamination?
get further away. The preliminary assessment basically is similar to a phase one. It researches everything that's known about the site environmentally. It goes and tries to find who's responsible for the mess. We do a site walk. You have somebody very knowledgeable score the site. And if it scores high enough, the next step is sampling. So it's a long process.
And what's the timetable for that,
Yes.
ideally?
We won't do a preliminary assessment until next year.
After September, or?
Yes, after September, and then it would be due within that year, and then the EPA has to review it and make a determination whether or not it needs to go further. It's a long process.
So by accepting this proposal, it would put us in that time frame for September, meaning if we accept to go ahead and go forth.
Yeah, if you actually pay for a phase two yourself and the data is presented, and if you'd allow us to use the data, we could stop EPA in their tracks unless it is that bad. If it is bad, then maybe you do want EPA to come in and make it a Superfund site.
Okay, so what we're looking at tonight is accepting the brownfield.
No, ma'am.
We're looking at.
We're looking at contracting with
Contract.
SCS to go out and do a phase two environmental study, turning that and eventually turning that data over to DEQ, so they can further help us down the road and getting this site cleaned up, even if it is even contaminated. So we really don't know that.
And I believe you're talking about a letter that said it was okay for unrestricted use. That is a letter from our radiation folks, and all they were looking at was the radiation.
Not the other chemicals?
No, in fact, we had no reason to believe those other chemicals were there
out there.
until recently.
Before you were telling us about the scenarios, you said, you asked us if you wanted us. Before you, I got it. She's throwing stuff.
Yeah.
Before you started on the dialogue we just had, you said you want me to tell you about the site first. What were you going to tell us about?
I was going to talk about the radium, that it was cleaned up properly under DEQ authority, and that's where that letter came from, and it was only about the radium. What we can do is, now that we have heard that this potential contamination exists, we can investigate it, or if you do the phase two, we can advise you what that means. We can advise you, do you want it to go to Superfund, or is this something you can take on yourself? Sometimes when you have contamination in the groundwater or in the subsurface, it's as easy as putting in a vapor intrusion system. I'm sorry, I have dry mouth.
Which is, excuse me, we
Basically,
experienced a few of having to do a few
Yeah.
of those in the town center project.
Right, and
So
basically you're
it's
just putting
not
slotted
unusual.
pipes. I'm sorry. You're putting slotted pipes under the building to give a preferential pathway to any vapors that come off the contamination, and then it's like a radon system, and it goes up and out into the atmosphere and doesn't accumulate inside the building.
So when
let
would
me
you be able
ask
to
you
do
fo-
that?
If the only concern is vapors, and my understanding is that there are wells in the area, so if there's drinking water wells, we need to look at that too.
Let me ask a follow-up
the
question,
time
Doctor. You're familiar with SCS, I'm assuming?
The
Is that
company,
correct?
yes.
The company, yes. And so, do you think that SCS, given your knowledge base, is a good choice for us for this phase two process?
You put me in a bad situation because I'm not supposed to recommend contractors.
Well, and I'm not wanting you to go out of bounds. I'm just
They're very qualified in brownfields.
very good. And Robert, we've had positive experience with them out at Center Rose, correct?
It's true, and I just spoke with Amy, and she thinks that they could probably get the testing out of the way and the lab results within 8 to 10 weeks.
Given all of that, Mayor, if it's appropriate, my questions have been answered, and I appreciate the expertise and highly respect Robert's opinion and the good doctor's opinion here. I would move that we proceed to enter into the agreement
Second.
with SCS. It just takes me a minute, Mr. Mayor. It just takes me a
Thank you for your
minute.
quick response, Mr. Dawkins.
Thank
I do
you.
have a motion, and I do have a second.
Approving entering into the agreement
Merry
with SCS.
Christmas, Pat. I do have a motion, and I have a second. Any further discussion on this current item?
Just so you know, we're not beating up on you or Robert or the other company, but we're catching it in the press.
No, I understand. And, you know, the big issue is that more information has come alight about what may have been dumped.
And you
And it
can't
doesn't
always
sound,
And you can't always trust what's in the newspaper. Because you shouldn't.
Unless Jeff wrote it, then he's pretty good.
You can't let facts get in the way of a good
And
story.
Mr. Burns, be advised, we do have two members of the press present with us, not only the Midwest City Beacon,
I looked right at
but the Daily Oklahoman as well. So,
Okay, before we go down this rabbit hole, back to the motion at hand.
I agree. I have a motion on the floor, and I have a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. Ma'am, thank you very much for being here and spending time with us. I'm sure it was enlightening.
Does the board have any other questions about the Brownfield program before our DEQ friends leave?
No, but if we had other questions, we could get them to you, you could forward them to her, and she could get the answers back to us, correct?
Yes.
They're very quick.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
With that, we have completed our discussion items for the,
Yeah, we have.
I'm sorry. We do have new business public discussion of our agenda for the Midwest City Memorial Hospital Authority. Anyone having any concerns to bring before the authority? We've already taken care of the agenda. There you go.
I just want that on record that number 6 is separate, that's all.
Let the record. Contract. Now that we've clarified our clerical issues, we will, hearing no more discussion on the hospital authority,
How quick will this process start?
apparently fairly quick.
We'll get contracts signed, and as soon as SCS can get it in their work process, I think I heard him say 8 to 10 weeks in terms. No, weather shouldn't impact what they're doing over there.
Okay, hearing no further discussion on Midwest City Memorial Hospital Authority, we hereby adjourn.
Session.
Okay, let me get through with the hospital authority.
Yes, sir. We have an
Okay.
executive session on the
Need a
hospital.
motion
authority.
to,
Let me read it. Let me
executive
read it.
session.
Yeah, this would be discussion consideration of one entering into executive session as allowed under 25 OS Section 307C10 to confer on matters pertaining to economic development, including the transfer of property, financing, or the creation of a proposal to entice a business to remain or locate within the city, and two, an open session authorizing the city manager to take action as appropriate based upon the discussion in executive session.
Move to go to executive.
Let me, if I might, Phil, how can we go into the other
Yeah,
executive
that's
session?
what
I'd say we're gonna have to,
We just do the
come
motion
out of
for this
recess.
one, and then recess, go back to city, and then motion for that, then we can adjourn to the executive sessions for both.
Okay, so say that, would you advise them of that?
So we'll go ahead and go to this executive session. Move to go to executive session on this
Second.
item.
Okay.
Got a second?
Do we have a second on
Second
going into
motion.
executive session? All
Have a
those in
motion and a
favor?
second, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Now we need to go back to the Midwest City Council and come out of recess, and I need a motion
No, we
to
need
go
to
into executive
recess.
session on
We
that.
need a recess first,
We
for
need
the
to-
hospital authority,
we
then
need
we'll come out of recess.
Okay. I have no clue.
Okay,
So,
we
we need a
recess.
motion to recess.
Second the motion to recess.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and now we're going to go back into,
The council.
into the to the City of Midwest City agenda.
Second.
That's correct.
Oh, there we go.
Good.
Have a motion and a second, all in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Ladies and gentlemen, we're going into executive session. Have a good night. Yo.